On March 21st, 2004, the BALCO steroid trial had begun and really opened up the floodgates to the steroid era in sports back in the 1990s and early 2000s, and changed a lot of athletes' looks in the public eye, and even destroying a few careers. Here's a story behind BALCO and how all this happened today on Daily Sports History. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide to a rapid deep dive into sports history every day. Now, to understand the history of BALCO, we have to go back all the way to 1984, when Victor Conti began a company named Melbury Holistics, a vitamin shop in California, which was moderately successful, enough to keep food on the table the first year. But Victor had bigger ambitions and closed the holistic shop to start BALCO, a sports supplement company. Was able to get investors into his company as he used his knowledge of nutrition, which was largely self-taught, not a conventional education. But he was testing different minerals and vitamins on athletes through regular blood and urine testing with them and monitoring how that changed their components. But they started to become known in the professional sports realm in 1996, when they added Bill Romanowski to their client list and hired chemist Patrick Arnold to help make what they called supplements for athletes, which actually were different types of steroids. There was HGH, testosterone cream, and THC, called the Clear, that they made popular and were starting to give out to different pro athletes or their physical trainers. But they did so without getting these verified by the USDA for over 14 years, until an investigation was launched into the company when an anonymous tipster, Trevor Graham, the sprinter coach to Marion Jones and Tim Montgomery, gave a syringe to the USDA for testing. This showed that it had THG in it, which is an anabolic steroid that they had not tested for before. But when they tested against the over 500 samples, over 20 of the samples tested positive for this, including sprinters, shot putters, long-distance runners, hammer throwers, as they only had Olympic athletes to test against. It later came out that there was other high-profile athletes involved, not just Bill Romanowski and Marion Jones. Jason Giambi and Barry Bonds of baseball were also involved in this report and investigation. And prior to this, baseball didn't really have a policy against steroids. And going back, we now know many baseball players back in the 90s and early 2000s were actually using steroids to help their game. But following this report, Commissioner Buzz Selig instituted a league-wide steroid policy that if one was tested positive once, they would be suspended half the year, and twice, a full season, and 3 times, they would be banned from Major League Baseball. In 2005, Victor Conti pled guilty of steroid distribution and money laundering and was sentenced to 4 months in prison with 4 months of house arrest. And what made this case so groundbreaking that it also included athletes going to prison. The sprinter Marion Jones pleaded guilty for lying to federal agents in 2003 of her steroid use and was sentenced to 6 months in prison with 2 years of probation. Barry Bonds was convicted of 1 count of obstruction of justice and was sentenced to 30 days of house arrest and 2 years probation, and later had this overturned in a federal appeal. This time in sports was maybe a dark one, as athletes were getting bigger and stronger, which made the games more exciting and more impressive. But it also led younger athletes to also get into steroids. And there's many sad cases where this has ended in death or serious injury. And that's the saddest thing I can ever think of, to just try to emulate your favorite athletes, and in doing so, causing harm or losing a life. BALCO can say they didn't do anything inherently wrong and that someone else would have just done it if they did not. And that may be true, but they made it easier for steroids to get into sports. And it's something we've had to fight against ever since. And hopefully will continue to be less and less a part of sports. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please go tell a friend about what you're listening to and that you enjoy the show. We love to hear. We love for our community to get out there and tell everyone what they're enjoying about the show and come back tomorrow for more Daily Sports History.